Hi everyone, welcome to Qdabra's weekly webinar. My name is Curvy Laborte, and today we're going to share with you two new techniques that we've added to Forms Viewer thanks to one of our customers who had these cool ideas. So the first technique is all about setting the focus on a specific field in your form. This is very handy when you want your form users to focus on a specific field after doing a specific action, let's say after clicking a button. An example scenario to apply this technique is when the form user hits the submit button and there are field validation errors. So with the help of this field focus feature, you can easily direct the focus of the user to the specific field that has the invalid value. And the second technique is about firing rules when a specific character limit in a field is reached. So let's say you have a text box field where you have set a maximum limit of characters, and whenever a form user reached that character limit, you want to execute a bunch of rules. So with this feature, you no longer need a button to fire the rules. The rules will run automatically whenever the character limit is reached, therefore eliminating unnecessary clicks in the form. So this topic is going to be further explained to us by our Forms Viewer Development Lead, James Risch. He's going to talk more about the importance of these techniques and how you can make use of the new updates in Forms Viewer. So without further ado, let's dive into our topic. Jimmy?
Okay, thank you very much for that introduction, Kirby. So here we are. Okay, so as Kirby mentioned, today we're talking about cursors and focusing them and things of that nature. The motivation for this was actually something a customer had requested from us. They're doing two-factor authentication in their forms, which is very popular recently. Basically, the form presents a page where you can enter a confirmation code from Authy or Twilio or something of that nature, and it has functionality for initiating that. So a bit of a pain point there was that when the form opens, ideally you want the cursor to just go right to that box so they can enter the code right away, not have to click or tap it. Another thing is the character limit is that it's nice if they can just enter the code, it's a fixed number of characters, and then just have it do the check right there rather than having them, again, click something. So this is about setting the focus to a particular input without manual user interaction and having the, basically having the field auto fire when it's full. So we have Peter at DCS to thank for this. This is sort of his idea. We've been working on this this week, and so one is what we're calling a custom QRules command. It's basically a bit of functionality you can add to your form using a JavaScript file, and the other is a built-in Forms Viewer feature that we just implemented this week. So some of the benefits of this, it's easier to do authentication when people are on their smartphones. There's less for the users to do, and it's faster. You can, have the cursor go directly to a field when they switch a view, and automatically run rules when a field is full. Another thing is maybe you don't necessarily want to switch focus when a field is full, but you just want to limit how many characters can be entered. That's also something you can do. And a scenario that we've used this for in the past, not in Forms Viewer, but in InfoPath, is for barcode scanners. So we've had customers that wanted to scan barcodes in their forms, and this will allow you to do that without having to, click or tap something after scanning it. So the first thing we want to talk about is the set focus command. So this actually makes use of another new Forms Viewer feature called custom QRules commands. And this is something that's coming out in the next version. And the idea is that you can just drop a bit of script into your form, and the command is available for use. We're going to be talking about that more in an upcoming webinar in 2 weeks. So before going into what's involved in using it, let's just have a look at the form in action. So let's see, you want to come over here and open this. So we can see here that I've got, this is just a sample form, of course, you know, not a very attractive, but it's here to illustrate the functionality. So as I can click these buttons down here, and you see that it auto focuses the text boxes for me. So basically, we look down here, I'm using a qrules command to tell it to do that. You can do this for radio buttons as well. For radio buttons, the black box doesn't appear, but we can see if I hit the space bar or use the arrow keys, it is actually focusing the radio like that. Same for a checkbox, the drop down. And the way we've implemented this, there are 2 ways to use it. You can specify a field name here, or you can use a control, what's called a control ID, which is sort of something that's built into the forms. Control IDs are a little trickier to work with, but there are times when they're preferable, and we sort of elaborate this up in the guidance text up here. So here, something that we couldn't do with the field name is pinpoint a specific radio button. So not sure exactly what kind of situation you'd want that for, but it's available. And same for buttons. I can focus a button, and we can also switch a view and focus a particular control. So here I'm going to this other view and focusing the second text box, or let me just load this up here. Okay, or I can switch and go straight to the second radio button. So so yeah, that's very nifty feature. So again, this is something that you need to add to your form. And again, this relies on a forms viewer feature that's coming out very soon in the next couple weeks. But all that's involved here is you add this resource file, setfocus.js. We'll be providing this form as a sample, so you can just get the file from here by coming in this dialog and clicking export. Then you come over here to the Qdabra rules. This assumes you have qrules in your form. Go to the finished loading field, and you see we have a rule here that does load resource name equals set focus. So that's loading the script. And then from that point on, the custom command rather will be available to you. So anytime you want to use it, you just run it. So here we've got custom set focus. The custom commands always have a prefix of custom, and then just the parameters, and that's it. Okay, so add the file, run load resource, and then use the command as needed. Okay, now the next thing is character limits. So this is actually a feature that was built into InfoPath. The designer and the viewer both have functionality relating to this. You can see this is a, whoops, this is a screenshot from InfoPath. So to get to this setting, you just right click any text box, look at it properties, and then the display tab, and then use these settings. So as you can see here, the second checkbox is optional. You can either have it go to the next control when it's filled, or not, just have it stay put, but prevent them from entering any more characters. And we can see my sample form here, which I'll be demoing in a moment. We're limiting these ones to just one character and moving them to the next. And this one limited to 5 characters, but we're not going to the next one. And another particular benefit of the move to next control feature is that you can have a rule on the form, not on the form, on the field, which will fire when it's modified. So basically the idea is this is sort of like for entering a PIN code or a confirmation code. They enter each digit, and then when they fill in the fourth one, a rule runs, and we're just popping up a prompt to show what they entered, but you could do something, of course, more useful with it. So that's the general idea. So let's look at this in action. So I want to come here. Open form. Okay, and I got just entering my digits one at a time, no tabbing or clicking involved. And then when as you can see, when I got past the last one, put the values all together and then threw them up in a prompt. And you can see that there's a little bit of fancy formatting here. I have a custom CSS file, just a couple of lines of CSS for the rounded corners and the background color, but the actual, character limits and functionality, that's just a built-in feature now. So you don't need to add anything to your form. Just pick the settings in the property dialog and you're good to go. And we can come down here to this box and it won't let me enter more than 5 characters. It just stops at that point. And if I tried to paste in, it would limit it to the first 5. That's very handy. So yeah, we hope you all get a lot of use out of this. And now next up is Curvy is going to show us a demo of sort of a real world situation, real world scenario that uses these features and see what it looks like when we put it all together. So go ahead, Curvy.
Okay. All right, so can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
All right, so here I have the sample form. Let's open the form. And this form is integrated with Authy. So for those of you who are not familiar with Authy, it's a two-factor authentication app that you can integrate with your Forms viewer forms. It adds an additional layer of security to your form whenever a user needs to access it. So here we have here a text box field for logging in. So it's asking for the first letter of my first name, followed by the first letter of my last name, and then the last 4 digits of my number. So since we haven't registered yet, it won't retrieve my details. So this form is actually submitting to a list, a user's list here whenever the user registers in this form. So let's just try logging in. So let's add my details here. So as you can see, it automatically fires the rule when it reached the 6-character limit for this text box field. So let's go ahead and try to sign up and use my details, last name, country code, and last my mobile number. And then when I click sign up, it will automatically focus the cursor in the first text box here. So as you can see, I have here I am mirroring my phone here, and I received a text message from Authy with a code that says 5855376. So as you can see, I'm just entering the code and it automatically allowed us to access the form. So let's try again um, by logging in since we've already registered. So let's try to enter my initials here and then the last four digits of my number. And then it will send again the code in my phone, 88529. So yeah, that's basically how the features work together with Authy. So going to this form in the designer, we have implemented the set focus. As you can see, we have the JavaScript file here in as a resource file, and then we've also load that JavaScript in our onload rules. And then we've also added the command after signing up. So as you can see earlier, it focused on the first text box. So we've used the field name here, parameter, and also the delay. So we normally use the delay parameter uh, when the what do you call this? The text box that you want to focus is not displayed prior to triggering this rule. So, and then for the text boxes, we've also added the properties here, the configuration. We've limited it to only 6 characters. And same with the text boxes for the code. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the demo form. Jimmy?
Yes, thank you very much for that great demo, Curvy. And to reiterate, so the two features we're talking about in this webinar are new features that are coming out in the next version of Forms Viewer in a couple weeks. But everything else you saw is using built-in Forms Viewer functionality, more or less. The requests to Authy to register a user and initiate an authentication request is using, I believe it's using our make request QROLS command. At one point I wanted to note about Authy, some people don't realize this, that Authy has an app which you can install on your phone to just have it generate authentication codes continually. But you don't have to have the app in order to use Authy. If somebody has never installed the app and you try to send a code to them, it'll actually go as an SMS message to their phone, which is nifty. And it also provides an option to just force it to always use SMS if you want it to be uniform. So just something to bear in mind. Okay, so let's open up the floor to questions. We have a comment from Peter here thanking us for this new work. You're very welcome, Peter. Anything else? Okay. So just a little bit about Forms Viewer. It's the lowest cost way to let go of InfoPath. You can take your existing InfoPath forms and migrate them to Forms Viewer with very minimal effort. And we're continually working to make that even less effort. You can future-proof your existing investments in your forms technology, and we support list forms, modern UI, team sites, and more. We also support non-SharePoint scenarios as well. We get new features that have never been in InfoPath, like anonymous access, mobile support in minutes, modern technologies like SMS, face recognition, and so on. And you can customize your forms for your business needs. So we want to talk a little bit about what's coming up in the next few months for Forms Viewer, what we're now calling Qdabra Forms. So the first is August 15th. We're working on a bit of a tool set for adding workflow logic to your form. So this is going to be something you can just drop into your form more or less. You can add task panes with custom workflow buttons, use a workflow editor to define workflows in a list, and it's going to support sequential workflows with multiple approvers. We also have work underway for the forms designer, which a lot of people are curious about. We're planning to have our alpha version up and running in mid-September. So this is when we're going to first demo it to our customers. It should open existing templates, allow editing, making some edits to the view, maybe adding some controls and updating their properties. And then you should be able to save and open the modified form in Forms Viewer. October 13th, we've got our free forms training, 4 days of 3 hours each. Intro to using Qdabra forms, what's new, SMS, mobile stuff, workflows, and dashboards, plus some Power BI stuff. And then last, we're planning to have our beta version of Forms Designer in mid-December. So this is when we're actually going to be rolling it out so people can try it out within the SharePoint app. We're also planning to have a rules debugger, which should help you to figure out what your rules are doing. If the logic isn't working quite correctly, you can sort of inspect what it's doing under the covers, and I'm really looking forward to this feature. And also some ways to add new features to your old forms. Our next webinar is coming up in 2 weeks. We're going to be going into more detail about this custom QRules command feature. So what this sort of enables is you can just drop in new features to your forms. You can make your own features if you're so inclined. A lot less fiddling with code and config files and the source files for your forms. And another great benefit is that if you need a new feature, which is possible to do with this technique, then you don't necessarily have to wait for the next Forms Viewer release to come around. We can just, put it together for you and add it to your form right there. So that's going to be really handy, and looking forward to talking about that in 2 weeks. So thank you all again for coming, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.